A few weeks ago, a new Warren Spector game was announced at the Game Awards, Thick as Thieves. I was particularly interested in the game because it's the first time in forever that a new stealth-centered game was announced, and while I'm not exactly a stealth game connoisseur, I've played my fair share of Assassin's Creed, Dishonored, and Splinter Cell to have somewhat of an interest in the genre. And so, Thick of Thieves reveal trailer made me think, why don't we get new stealth games these days? I mean, the way I remember it, stealth games were the shit back in the early 2000s, leading all the way up to the 2010s. These are the games that you played if you want to be perceived as the cool guy within your friend circle who doesn't need flashy cinematic set pieces or over-the-top action moves to feel empowered. Instead, you prefer the solitude of a hidden steel blade in a dark alleyway as you sneak around in a place where you aren't supposed to be doing something you aren't supposed to be doing. That, in my opinion, is the primary appeal of stealth gaming, the feeling of getting away with stuff that's supposed to be impossible, using nothing but your own ingenuity and perseverance. Unlike Kratos or a Doom guy, your character in most stealth games isn't some ubermensch action hero who can split mountains and rip enemies apart with his bare hands. No, instead you strike from the shadows, using the advantage of unpredictability to score an instantaneous knockout blow. This inherent limitation placed upon the player may seem like a bad thing at first glance. However, I'm gonna tell you that stealth games can be fun. However, they usually have a really steep learning curve that often puts off new players. For example, the first time you rush in like Rambo and Dishonored, you'll quickly find yourself staring down the muzzle end of a flintlock before your gray matter has evacuated all over the adjacent wall. But once you get in the hang of the combat system and understand how to play around enemy vision cones, you'll turn into an unstoppable force as you swiftly dash between encounters like a ghost, dropping enemies in a matter of seconds. And here's the thing, the mechanical depth and strategy complexity of a well-made stealth game such as Dishonored is a truly masterful thing to behold, right? And it provides endless potential for replayability because there's always a more efficient or more stylish way to dispatch your enemies. In many ways, stalking your foes in a stealth game kind of makes you feel like the Predator as you plan every single encounter in advance, weaving your way through levels with impeccable precision, appearing for a brief moment before striking swiftly and then vanishing into the ether, leaving your enemies tremble in fear as they helplessly watch their comrades fall one by one. There's always a sense of tension in stealth games because you know the balance can easily sway one way or the other at any time, and you know that your character is incredibly vulnerable if confronted directly, and yet you still push on ahead, taking advantage of the tools given to you by the game. And each stealth franchise has its own spin on the formula. Deus Ex, for example, puts you in the shoes of a gravel-gargling, trench-coat-wearing badass who uses his cybernetic augmentations to solve globe-spanning conspiracies in a futuristic sci-fi dystopia, while Metal Gear Solid, on the other hand, is a super serious game about industrial espionage. Then you have Splinter Cell, which is basically a tactical military sim that puts you into a sandbox level, gives you a bunch of cool gadgets, and tells you to get the job done whichever way you want. And we also can't forget about Hitman, where each individual level is a game length all by itself, and it gives you at least a dozen different ways to murder the target. But you know, my personal favorite stealth game of all time is Assassin's Creed. I love the way it combines parkour, melee combat, and social stealth. I love the Templar versus Assassin rivalry, the historical setting, the storytelling, all of it. To me, Assassin's Creed represents the ideal balance between action and stealth, which is why some people often refer to it as an action stealth game. I know those two words are kind of contradictory here, but Ubisoft somehow managed to make it work, at least for the first 4 games before everything fell apart and we ended up with this Frankenstein monster that is the Assassin's Creed of today. And here's the truly sad part, man. Despite all of its flaws, Assassin's Creed is one of only 2 remaining stealth franchises from the old guard, with the second one being Hitman. Deus Ex is dead after the underwhelming sales performance of Mankind Divided. Metal Gear Solid has become Metal Gear Flaccid after Kojima's departure from Konami, and Sam Fisher's wall climbing days are over after the disaster that was Splinter Cell Conviction. Thief almost had a rebirth in 2014, but that game was so bad it got memory holded harder than Japan's war crimes in World War II. So for better or worse, it seems like Assassin's Creed Shadows is the last remaining hope for Ubisoft. If, and more likely than not when, this game fails, it might spell the end of the road for Assassin's Creed as a franchise, and possibly Ubisoft as well, according to industry analysis, is being considered for a buyout by Tencent. And I want to talk about how we got into this situation and where the rot truly began for my favorite stealth franchise of all time. And trust me, this disease isn't exclusive to Assassin's Creed, because what happened to this franchise is a microcosm for the demise of stealth as a genre. Let's rewind the clock all the way back to 2012, the year Assassin's Creed 3 was released. This was the game that introduced me to the franchise. You see, Assassin's Creed 3 was unlike anything I had ever played before, not just because of the gameplay, but also because the protagonist wasn't some knight in shining armor with mythical powers or a badass special ops guy who could single-handedly take down entire armies. No, Connor was very much a hero working from the shadows. ethos, helping people out of a sense of duty and honor. And as a result, I felt compelled to engage in the various side quests and story missions, not because the game told me to, but because I wanted to learn more about Connor and how he actually became an assassin. And just when I thought I had seen it all, Assassin's Creed Black Flag took things one step further by improving on the naval combat of its predecessor and adding tons of customization options. Ubisoft even added underwater exploration, a brand new crew recruitment system, and dual wielding. There was a real sense of progression as you raided villages, stole materials from enemy ships to upgrade your jackdaw, and even plundered the legendary warships that you could find out on the open water. And to really make you feel like a seafaring pirate, the game included a dynamic quest generator called Horizon, which would automatically put together side missions with varying levels of difficulty and new objectives tailored to your individual play style. This meant that no two players would have the same experience even if they were to navigate the same part of the ocean, because each one would receive a slightly different quest with custom objectives. Even the social aspect of the game was given a massive makeover, because you can now hire escorts to walk with you and distract the guards, rendering you invisible. If you were standing in the middle of the crowd and were spotted by guards, you could actually create a quick distraction by tossing some coins, which the NPCs would immediately try to grab, giving you the space to run away. I love these little additions that made the stealth feel so much better, and it made the game stand out so much more in memory. And even to really drive the point home, Ubisoft has an entire mission where the jackdaw itself plays a stealth mechanic as you put on the flag of your enemy and sneak your way through waters, trying to not get spotted by the enemy ships. I mean, that to me is a whole new level of dedication. But what sucks, right, is that every Assassin's Creed since Black Flag has tried and failed to recapture that magic. It almost seems like Ubisoft has learned all the wrong lessons from the success of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, right? Because they thought it was the addition of RPG mechanics like crew recruitment, upgrades, and crafting that made that game so memorable, when in reality it was the engaging combat loop and a story full of meaningful character interactions that sold the game, along with the great stealth that was a part of that game. Just the vibe of sailing across the seas with your crewmates, singing sea shanties, and meeting legendary pirates, along with being able to hide yourself among a crowd of escorts that you hire, or a group of bodyguards that you have protect you as you walk down the street, were all parts of this game that people fell in love with. And of course, you can't forget watching Edward's transformation from just another thief in search of glory to an honorable man who joined the Assassin's Brotherhood because he felt it was the right thing to do. That's what made Assassin's Creed Black Flag so good, right? But with Syndicate and Unity, Ubisoft made an effort to marry classic concepts with the new world open RPG mechanics, but ultimately the fan base was just too jaded, too disillusioned to give them another chance. Sure, Syndicate and Unity were financially successful, with the latter selling 10 million copies, and don't get me wrong, Unity had an absolutely beautiful story, especially with Arno, right? If you haven't played it, I recommend playing that game for the story alone. Absolutely beautiful from start to finish. But sometimes the only thing worse than a bad game that sells poorly is a bad game that sells really well, because it poisons the well and diminishes the trust that your core fan base once had in your product. Marketing and fake hype can only carry a game so far before people begin to see it for what it really is, a hollow shell of its former self. And what sucks, right, is that Unity was bogged down by technical issues on launch and a main character with all the charisma of a wooden plank sometimes. There were moments when Arno really stood out, but honestly, those moments didn't really exist till like halfway towards the end of the game, right? In the beginning, the guy kind of sucked. I played the entire game front and back. Play it yourself if you think I'm wrong. But in the beginning, he kind of had a shitty personality, and then Syndicate fixed the glitchy code, but failed to improve upon Unity's formula in any meaningful way. It felt like a new iPhone release, where you're getting the exact same thing with a slightly better camera and slightly faster processor, but with a brand new price tag, because ultimately that's exactly what Syndicate was, a slightly better Unity that arrived 1 year later with a brand new $60 price tag. And this is what sucks, man, because for those of you that haven't played Unity, I'm gonna kind of fill you in on something. Unity brought something very, very new to the Assassin's Creed formula, and that was unique assassination attempts. If you tried to assassinate someone in a different way, this would be offered to you. You would even get a unique animation. They also brought these over in Syndicate. Like, my favorite one is when you disguise yourself as a dead patient that's coming onto the field for surgery, and you end up jamming the guy right through his head with your hidden blade. But the problem is Syndicate didn't really improve anything. It's just Unity. It's Unity Plus, and that's what really disappoints me, man. There was nothing new added to this game. But what's wild, right, is Ubisoft might be incompetent, greedy, and full of soul-sucking managerial parasites, but at least they're not stupid, because they did notice this trend. Every other day we had a new YouTube video or news article about how Assassin's Creed is nearing the end of its life cycle, how stealth as a genre is no longer viable because gamers just aren't interested in difficult games that punish you for making mistakes. Like to point you towards Sekiro, yes, it's technically not a stealth game, but sneaking is a huge part of the combat loop, at least until you run into a boss fight, at which point it transforms into a completely different game like Dark Souls with infinite parries. By the way, remember those new Hitman games? Yeah, apparently those are selling like gold-plated cotton candy because Hitman 3 generated the highest revenue and profit numbers in IO Interactive's history. This is because they created an open sandbox for the player to interact with in any way they please, whether it's stealth and takedowns or going full murder spree. So if I were Ubisoft, I'd take a long, hard look at the downfall of the series and the literal mountain of feedback from OG Assassin's Creed fans detailing exactly how to revive this once legendary series to its former glory. Bring back old talent, make the ultimate Assassin's Creed experience, one that focuses on stealth and assassinations. Remove all that useless open world bloat, health bars with our characters, because I remember when the health bar didn't exactly exist. If you got someone on a really good stealth kill, that was it. Game over. GG. Doesn't matter what level you are. Now in the newer games, if you're not the appropriate level for the character, it doesn't matter how stealthy you are. You will lose. And that's some bullshit. I'm sorry, but it is. Not to mention, craft a good story with memorable characters and watch as your game absolutely blows through these sales charts. Seriously, just look at the state of the gaming market right now. All you have to do is not shit your pants and you'll win by default. The world is hungry, really hungry for a proper Assassin's Creed game, man. Ubisoft just needs to return to their roots, but honestly, only time's gonna tell if they actually do this. Which brings me to my next point. Stealth as a genre never really died. Instead, it was murdered by one awful release after another. Hitman Abomination in 2012, Thief Tanic in 2014, and the absolute disgrace that was Assassin's Creed Odyssey in 2018. I'm sorry, that game could have been labeled anything else, take out the Assassin's Creed name, and it still would have made sense. The problem though is that gamers aren't tired of stealth, they're tired of bad stealth games. I know for a fact Ubisoft can make a good Assassin's Creed game if they focus on delivering an experience that caters to the series core fan base rather than the action adventure fans who hopped on board after 2018, alright? Assassin's Creed Shadows has the potential to be the best Assassin's Creed game yet, just by virtue of being set in feudal Japan. Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I remember seeing this poster all the way back in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where we saw the Japanese temple. That's when the first roots of an idea for a Japanese Assassin's Creed game took place, alright? And I mean, think about it. For a whole decade, Assassin's Creed fans have been begging Ubisoft to make a game with ninjas that is set in Japan, and now that they've chosen to delay the release after the initial backlash, I hope they use this time to focus on what truly matters: deep stealth mechanics and a good story. That's it. We don't need samurais, Vikings, aliens, or base building. Just give us ninjas in Japan with lots of juicy assassination targets. If Assassin's Creed Shadows succeeds, it won't just revitalize the Assassin's franchise, but stealth gaming as a whole in the AAA gaming space. But the problem is on the other end. If this game bombs, if this game does bad and does not do well, I'm sorry, but I genuinely think Assassin's Creed is over, and if Assassin's Creed dies, it might just take stealth gaming as we know it right with it. But these are my honest opinions as an old-time fan of the series who's played every single game. I believe Mirage was a step in the right direction, but we aren't quite there yet. Like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest stealth game nerd out there, but I'd hate to see the genre die because it has given us some of the most amazing games of the last 20 years. And stealth as a mechanic is virtually omnipresent in pretty much every action-adventure game, from the Arkham series to The Last of Us, even in Fallout if you want to be technical, right? Skyrim, there's another example, but that's only a shadow approximation of the real thing. With advances in game dev technology and gaming hardware, imagine how awesome a dedicated stealth game could be in 2025. Next-gen AI, physics, branching story paths, massive open-ended levels with insane amounts of detail in every nook and cranny. Oh my god, the possibilities are absolutely endless. But that's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this rant enjoyable. I know I went on a bit of a wild one. Subscribe, because I'm going to be uploading videos like this way more frequently going forward, and I promise I don't plan to be gone as long in the future. And hey, if for any reason you don't like this video, go bother MJ Plays. This is his idea, not mine. But you know, in the end, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun writing this script and had a lot of fun being here. See you guys next time. Goodbye, everybody.